How you handle boredom determines everything. Most people don't destroy their lives with one big decision. They do it in quiet moments. The seconds between a thought and a scroll, the pause before reaching for a screen, the silence they can't stand, boredom. That's where it starts. A person doesn't lose their future in chaos. They lose it in the ordinary, when their mind whispers, do something. And instead of creating, they consume. One person bored picks up their phone, checks for a new notification, scrolls just for a hit of something, anything. And they repeat this hour after hour, day after day, until their brain forgets how to sit still, how to think deeply, how to dream. Another person, in the same quiet moment, feels the boredom creep in and doesn't run. They breathe, they stay. They choose to write, to think, to build, and with every tiny choice to stay with the discomfort, they grow stronger. They build discipline, they become unstoppable. Because here's the raw truth. Boredom is the fork in the road. One path leads to a life of reaction. The other leads to a life of purpose. You don't need more motivation. You don't need another hype video. What you need is to get comfortable being bored and still choosing the right thing. Master boredom, and you master yourself. Number 1, why boredom breaks most people. Boredom is not the absence of something to do. It's the moment your mind gets quiet and your cravings get loud. We live in a world where stillness feels like suffocation. Our brains are wired to seek novelty, stimulation, something new to chase, watch, swipe, taste, or feel. And when none of that is present, our nervous system goes into panic mode. That silence, that's the space where your insecurities echo, your fears get louder, your impulses start whispering temptations. People think boredom is harmless. It's not. Boredom is one of the most dangerous emotions we face because it doesn't scream. It whispers. It makes you think you're in control, while slowly steering you into the places you swore you'd never go again. You didn't binge because you were hungry. You binged because you were bored. You didn't text them again because you missed them. You did it because your brain couldn't sit with the quiet. You didn't quit because you weren't capable. You quit because the process got repetitive, slow, unexciting, and your mind couldn't take it. This is how boredom becomes a trigger for self-sabotage. The mind, desperate for stimulation, will reach for anything that gives a quick hit of dopamine. Junk food, drama, gossip, scrolling, the attention of someone you don't even like. And the cycle repeats. Because all those things are easy. All of them give you something now. But every time you give in, you lose a little piece of the future you were building. There's a reason people relapse into bad habits, toxic relationships, or impulsive decisions. It's not always because they're weak. It's because boredom broke them first. They had a moment, just one moment of stillness, and instead of breathing through it, they ran from it. That's all it takes. Just a few seconds of discomfort, and the entire path shifts. You might know someone who had everything going for them, talent, discipline, potential, and then one day they just stopped. They got bored. The goal didn't excite them anymore. The journey became too predictable, so they found a way to feel something by breaking everything they built, and then they wondered why they felt so lost. This is the secret no one tells you. Greatness is boring. Mastery is boring. Success is repetitive. It's waking up and doing the same small actions day after day, with no applause, no reward, no breakthrough, until one day, everything changes. But most people never make it to that day. Not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't stay. Boredom got to them. It made them think something was wrong. It tricked them into believing that peace is the same as emptiness. It lied to them, and they believed it. So many lives are quietly derailed by boredom. A student who could have graduated top of their class but gave up when the lectures felt long and lifeless. An entrepreneur who was one system away from scaling their business but quit when the numbers stopped being exciting. A partner who ruined something real and loving because it didn't feel like the movies anymore. These aren't stories of failure. They're stories of escape. Escape from the discomfort of discipline. Escape from the silence of slow progress. Escape from the responsibility of sitting with your own mind. The truth is, boredom is not the enemy. It's the training ground. It's where your real power is forged. If you can sit in boredom without needing to numb it, if you can stay when every part of you wants to run, if you can choose purpose over impulse, that's when everything shifts. But first, you have to see boredom for what it really is, a test. Not a punishment, not a signal to quit, just a test. One that most people fail, not because they're incapable, but because they've never been taught how to stay. You have to train yourself to sit in that silence, to breathe through the dullness, to hold space between the stimulus and the response, because in that space, your future is being decided. Boredom is the moment before the miracle, but most never make it that far. They want progress without patience, results without repetition, growth without discomfort, and that's why they stay stuck. You have to choose differently. You have to be willing to feel the boredom and still do the work. You have to see boredom as the doorway, not the dead end. Because the ones who master boredom, they don't just survive, they lead, they create, they become unshakable. Not because they never felt the urge to escape, but because they stopped letting that urge define them. Number 2, the battle inside boredom. Boredom is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something right, and your mind just doesn't know how to handle it yet. Because boredom shows up exactly when change begins. It's the wall every person hits when they're trying to build a new habit, chase a dream, or turn their life around. It's the quiet before the breakthrough, but most people never see what's on the other side. They mistake the boredom for a dead end, when really, it's a door. The problem is that door doesn't swing open. You have to sit, you have to stay, you have to suffer the silence until the next version of you has space to grow. This is the battle inside boredom. It's not just about what you're doing, it's about who you're becoming. Because when you feel bored, when your body twitches for a distraction, when your mind reaches for an escape, when your emotions scream for anything else, that's the moment your old self is dying and your new self is being born. Not in fire, not in glory, but in quiet, uncelebrated persistence. And that's why it's so hard. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. We're wired for novelty, for stimulation, for anything that feels alive. And growth, real growth, it feels slow. It feels invisible. It feels like nothing is happening, but that's a lie. Something is always happening. You're building the muscle of mastery. You're rewiring your impulses. You're training your nervous system to trust stillness. That's the work. That's the war. And that's where most people give up. They start journaling. Day 1 feels good. Day 2 feels productive. Day 3, it feels pointless. The words don't flow. The thoughts feel repetitive. They say, "This isn't working," and they stop. But it was working. It was never about the words, it was about the discipline. It was about the quiet clarity that only comes when you push past the noise or they clean up their diet. Week 1 feels strong. Week 2 feels neutral. Week 3, they're tired. Not just physically, but emotionally. The food is bland, the cravings return, the excitement fades, and they think, what's the point? So they eat the cookie, not because they failed, but because they didn't recognize the test. Or they start building something. Maybe a business, maybe a new routine, maybe a personal dream. At first, they're on fire. They wake up early. They plan their days. They feel unstoppable. And then the plateau hits. Month 1 ends, and there are no big results. No praise, no validation, just repetition. Just silence, just more of the same. And they begin to doubt. Maybe this isn't it. Maybe I'm wasting my time. But here's the truth. Boredom is the test. This is the moment that separates the dreamers from the doers. Because anyone can start. Starting is easy. Starting is sexy. But staying is sacred. Staying is where transformation happens. Because when you stay, when you hold the line through the dullness, when you resist the urge to jump ship, something deeper wakes up inside you. A self-respect, a mental strength, a quiet confidence. You realize you don't need constant excitement. You don't need to feel good all the time. You can sit with discomfort and still do the right thing. And that is rare. That is what the world is missing. People who can hold their focus when there's no applause. People who can stay the course when it feels like nothing is changing. People who don't chase the next shiny thing just because the current one got quiet. Because that quiet, that's where the magic is. That's the sacred middle. That's the space between the planting and the harvest. It's where roots grow, where foundations are laid, where character is built. You don't see it at first, but you feel it. Something inside you starts to shift. The noise gets softer, the urges get weaker, the need for validation fades, and what's left is you, focused, steady, solid. Boredom is not a curse. It's the initiation ritual of discipline. It's the price of admission into the life you say you want. If you can't sit through it, you can't lead. You can't love deeply. You can't build anything lasting. Because everything good, everything requires boredom. Long-term relationships, financial freedom, health, mastery, peace, none of those things come with constant stimulation. They come with presence. And presence requires patience. and patience is born through boredom. So the next time you hit the wall, the next time the habit feels stale, the routine feels dry, the process feels lifeless, don't run, don't quit, don't seek the hit, stay, watch, wait. There's a new self waiting for you on the other side, a stronger, calmer, more capable version of you. And it can only be born through this battle, the one happening right now in the quiet when no one's watching. Win this moment and you win the rest. Number 3, how society has taught you to escape it. We live in a culture of escape, not excellence, not depth, not discipline. Escape. And we've been taught since childhood that discomfort is a signal to run, not to stay, not to grow, not to listen, but to run. The moment you feel bored, your hand reaches for your phone like it's second nature. You scroll, swipe, consume, repeat until your mind is numb and your attention is fractured. And you don't even realize what you've lost. Not time, not energy, but access. Access to your own potential. Access to the deeper ideas, the real emotions, the uncomfortable truths that only surface when everything else goes quiet. But society has wired you to hate the quiet. It has fed you a diet of noise, of flashing lights, autoplay videos, infinite scrolls. Every time you pick up your device, $1 billion system profits off your inability to sit still. Every tap, every like, every click is tracked, optimized, and monetized. And the product they're selling isn't entertainment. It's you, your attention, your willpower, your time, your future. Because here's what they know and you don't. Boredom is not bad. It's the birthplace of all the things that matter. Creativity, innovation, vision, peace, breakthroughs. But those things take time, they take stillness, they take mental space, and none of that fits into a dopamine loop. So you're not taught to endure boredom, you're taught to medicate it. With sugar, with sex, with scrolling, with shopping, with arguments, with distractions that feel like momentum but leave you exactly where you started. Numb, anxious, restless, hungry for meaning, but too overstimulated to recognize it when it shows up. And this is the crisis no one is talking about. The crisis of self-control, the collapse of attention spans, the death of long-term thinking. We are raising generations of minds that cannot tolerate stillness, that cannot resist distraction, that cannot finish what they start. Not because they're weak, but because they've never been trained. There's no room for boredom anymore. It's treated like a disease. But what if it's a signal? What if the reason you're bored is because your soul is starving for substance, for stillness, for something deeper than the next post, the next ping, the next playlist? What if the boredom is your brain trying to tell you that the constant stimulation is killing your edge? Because it is. Slowly, silently, but absolutely. Every time you run from boredom, you run from breakthrough, you run from mastery, you run from the one thing that separates average from extraordinary, the ability to stay with something long enough to go deep. The world doesn't need more stimulation. It needs more stillness. It needs people who can sit quietly in a room and think, people who can feel an urge and not act on it, people who can choose meaning over momentum. But instead, we're taught to escape. Every app is built to hook you. Every algorithm is trained to addict you. And every moment you give in, the muscle of self-mastery weakens just a little bit more. You start losing your patience, then your purpose, then your power. Until one day you can't even remember what it feels like to be present, to be still, to be at peace without needing to do anything. That's not just sad, that's dangerous. Because a mind that cannot sit still is a mind that cannot think for itself. It becomes programmable, manipulatable, lost in the noise, chasing shadows, mistaking distraction for direction. And the saddest part, we think it's normal. We think it's just the way life is now, but it's not. It's a choice, a design, a trap, and you can break it. Not by deleting every app or living in a cave, but by noticing, by becoming aware, by reclaiming the moments when boredom shows up and saying, this isn't something to run from, this is something to feel, because the ability to sit with boredom without needing to escape it, that's power. That's the birthplace of creativity. That's how you reconnect with what actually matters, with yourself, with your vision, with your values. Because if you can't hold your own attention, you can't hold anything. Not a relationship, not a dream, not a standard. You'll always be reaching, reacting, running. So pause, breathe, look around, ask yourself, who benefits from me being this distracted? Who profits from my boredom? What is it costing me to always be entertained, but never empowered? You were not born to be a passive consumer of the world's noise. You were born to create, to think, to lead, to build something that lasts. But that can only happen when you learn to endure the silence, when you train your nervous system to sit in stillness without needing to be rescued from it. This is the rebellion. Not faster, not louder, not more, but quieter, slower, deeper. Reclaim your boredom and you reclaim your mind. Number 4, what boredom actually means. Most people misunderstand boredom. They treat it like an enemy, a problem, a sign that something's wrong. But boredom isn't the problem. It's the pause before the transformation. It's the space between who you are and who you're becoming. You think you're stuck when you're bored. You think you're wasting time. But what if boredom is just your mind creating room for something bigger, something deeper, something necessary? Because that's what it really is. Boredom means space. Boredom means stillness. Boredom means potential. But society has trained us to fear space. We've been conditioned to believe that if nothing is happening, then nothing is growing. If we're not producing, we're falling behind. If we're not stimulated, we're being lazy. So we fill every quiet moment with noise. We scroll through content we don't care about. We say yes to conversations that drain us. We fill our calendars, not because we're intentional, but because we're afraid of the silence. But here's the truth. Stillness is not wasted time. Stillness is preparation. It's the mental compost where great ideas are born. It's the training ground where emotional maturity develops. It's the womb where breakthroughs begin. And only those who can sit in it long enough ever access their full potential. Look at the lives of the greatest creators, thinkers, athletes. Every single one of them had to master boredom. Not avoid it, not escape it, master it. Steve Jobs was famous for his long silent walks. No phone, no distractions, just him and his thoughts. He didn't fear the space, he used it. And it's in that space that some of Apple's most iconic ideas were born. The iPod, the iPhone, the very world you live in today, shaped by a man who could sit in silence and let ideas rise. Or think about Kobe Bryant. Everyone talks about the highlight reels, the championships, the mentality. But what built his greatness were the boring reps, the same drills, over and over, day after day. Long before the stadiums, long after the crowds, shooting alone in an empty gym while others slept. That wasn't boredom, that was devotion disguised as repetition. That was his greatness being carved one motion at a time. And what about writers, creators, visionaries? You don't see the hours they spend staring at a blank page, pacing around their room, wrestling with thoughts that won't land. You don't see the part where they wait for clarity, for truth, for the right words. And in that waiting, in that uncomfortable silence, something sacred happens. The mind settles, the noise fades, and something real, something original starts to surface. But only if they stay long enough. Only if they don't run. And that's where most people lose the battle. Not in their ability, not in their resources, but in their restlessness. They quit because they're bored. They change direction because it's not exciting anymore. They drop the journal, the diet, the business plan, the spiritual practice. Not because it wasn't working, but because it wasn't stimulating. And they never realize that boredom is the test. It's the rite of passage. It's the moment where your old self is dying and your new self is being born. But birth is painful and messy and quiet and slow. So people escape it. They numb it. They avoid it with constant stimulation and then wonder why they never grow. Because if you can't handle boredom, you'll never reach your greatness. You'll always be chasing the next hit of novelty, the next burst of excitement, and you'll confuse movement with meaning. But real growth isn't loud. It's slow. It's subtle. It happens in the quiet days, the boring reps, the still hours where nothing seems to be changing on the outside, but everything is changing on the inside. That's where the muscle of mastery is built. That's where patience becomes power. That's where focus becomes freedom, but only for those who stay. So the next time you feel bored, pause, don't rush to fill it, don't reach for the nearest distraction. Ask yourself, what am I being prepared for right now? What part of me is being invited to grow in this silence? What vision is trying to surface beneath all this stillness? Because your mind knows it's trying to show you something, but it needs space. It needs time. It needs you to stop running long enough to listen. Boredom isn't the end of your productivity. It's the beginning of your presence. It's the teacher that asks, can you be with yourself without needing to escape? And the more you train yourself to sit in that space, the more your life expands. Your creativity sharpens. Your focus deepens. Your decisions become clearer. You stop reacting to life and start creating it. because now you're operating from your core, not your cravings. And that's where real power lives, in the ability to do what matters, even when it's not exciting, in the capacity to hold your vision through the dull seasons, in the quiet knowing that nothing lasting is built on constant stimulation. So yes, boredom is hard, it's uncomfortable, it's raw, but it's also sacred. It's the hallway between the life you've known and the life you're building. Don't sprint through it. Don't sleepwalk past it. Sit in it, feel it, learn from it. Because boredom is not a void, it's a vessel. It's not absence, it's access to depth, to greatness, to the next level of you. And only the brave choose to stay long enough to receive what it's offering. Your job is not to avoid boredom. Your job is to get curious about it, to welcome it like a doorway, not a dead end. Because on the other side of it, if you stay long enough, is everything you've been chasing in the noise: peace, clarity, strength, direction. And the version of you who's not afraid of stillness, that version is unstoppable. Number 5, daily habits that train your boredom muscle. Boredom is not just a passing feeling. It's not something to avoid. It's a signal, a doorway, a training ground. And like any training ground, it demands repetition, discipline, intention. Because boredom is a muscle, and if you train it, you gain something most people never will: mental dominance, the ability to stay when others run, the power to keep showing up when the excitement fades, the resilience to keep doing what matters, even when it's not stimulating. That's a rare kind of strength. And it doesn't come from motivation. It comes from habits. Quiet, intentional, daily habits. The kind of things that look small on the surface, but change who you are underneath. One of the most powerful things you can do is practice doing deep work in silence. No music, no background noise, just you, your thoughts, and your task. It will be uncomfortable at first. Your mind will crave stimulation. You'll reach for your phone, you'll feel restless, you'll want to escape. But don't. Sit in the quiet, let your thoughts wander, and then gently, slowly, bring them back to what you're doing. This simple practice builds focus. It stretches your attention span. It teaches your mind that it doesn't need external noise to function. It can generate power from within. Over time, your tolerance for stillness grows. You stop needing dopamine hits to stay present. You start creating from a deeper place. Another powerful habit is taking phone-free walks. No podcasts, no texts, no camera, just walking, just being. At first, it will feel like you're missing something. You'll feel the urge to reach for your pocket every few seconds. But eventually, you'll start noticing things: the wind, your breath, the rhythm of your steps, the way your thoughts untangle themselves when you're not distracting them. This kind of walk isn't about productivity, it's about presence. It's about retraining your nervous system to slow down, to listen, to observe. It's about reminding your brain that it doesn't have to be entertained to feel alive. The world is already alive, it just needs your attention. Then there's the power of silent mornings. No music, no rushing, no scrolling, just stillness. It can be 10 minutes, it can be an hour. The point is to give your mind space before the world floods in, before the opinions, the news, the noise. In that space, you can hear yourself, you can breathe, you can think clearly. And when you start your day from that grounded place, everything changes. You stop reacting and start responding. You move with more intention. You work with more clarity. You speak with more power. Silent mornings train you to lead your life, not just follow it. Even mundane things like cooking or cleaning can become boredom training if you do them mindfully. Instead of rushing through your chores or multitasking while you cook, try doing them slowly, intentionally. Feel the water as you wash the dishes. Smell the ingredients as you cook your meal. Be present with your body. This is not about being efficient. It's about being awake. These ordinary moments are opportunities. Because if you can stay present during something simple and repetitive, you can stay present through anything. You build a kind of spiritual endurance, the kind that anchors you when life gets noisy or stressful. And then there's journaling, when you feel uninspired. This one is especially powerful because it teaches you to sit with your own mind when it's not giving you anything flashy. Most people only write when they feel something dramatic: sadness, joy, revelation. But real growth comes when you show up to the page even when nothing is there. When your words feel dry, when your thoughts feel scattered, when your hand wants to stop, that's when something deeper begins to emerge. Not what's easy to say, but what's honest, what's hidden, what's waiting. And that kind of journaling trains you to trust your process, to keep showing up, even when the spark isn't obvious, because that's where the breakthroughs live, on the other side of your patience. These habits might seem small. they might seem boring. But that's the point. They stretch the part of you that's not addicted to excitement. They build the version of you that doesn't need to be constantly entertained to be engaged. They teach you that life isn't always about how fun something feels, but how meaningful it becomes through repetition, presence, and practice. That's the shift in mindset. Stop asking how to make it fun. Ask how to make it meaningful. Fun fades, meaning grows. Fun distracts, meaning grounds. And the people who can stay committed to meaning, even when it's not fun, those are the ones who build real transformation. When you cook mindfully, when you write through the dry days, when you walk without music, when you work in silence, something subtle and powerful begins to shift. You stop outsourcing your focus to stimulation. You start owning your attention. You stop fearing boredom. You start leaning into it. And in that process, you become stronger, quieter, sharper, more resilient. Because now you can sit with discomfort. You can hold the tension of not yet. You can stay focused without the need to be constantly entertained. And that ability to remain present through boredom is what unlocks your creativity, your discipline, your clarity, your emotional strength. You'll begin to notice how much emotional growth happens in these moments. When you don't check out, when you don't numb, when you don't run to distraction, you meet parts of yourself you've never met before. You see your fears, your resistance, your inner voice. And if you stay long enough, you'll start transforming not just your habits, but your identity. You'll realize boredom isn't something to escape. It's something to master. It's the place where patience becomes power, where discipline becomes peace, where the surface noise falls away and your truest self starts to rise. So if you want to change your life, start small, start slow, start boring. Do the things no one will see, the quiet practices, the uncelebrated moments. Train your boredom muscle every single day, and one day you'll look around and realize you don't just have stronger habits, you have a stronger mind. And with that, there's nothing you can't do. Number 6, boredom versus alignment. What to do when you're called to change. Boredom is not always what it seems. Sometimes it's a signal to push forward. Sometimes it's a whisper to walk away. And the real work, the deep inner work, is knowing the difference. Most people lump all boredom into the same category. They feel that restless energy, that emotional dullness, that craving for something new, and they assume it means something is wrong, that they're on the wrong path, that they need a drastic change. And sometimes that's true, but other times that boredom is simply discomfort. It's the resistance that comes right before a breakthrough. It's the stretching of your discipline. And if you walk away too soon, you don't just avoid boredom, you avoid growth. You short-circuit your evolution. You miss the deeper reason that thing was in your life to begin with. There's a difference between soul boredom and discipline boredom. One is a nudge from your inner wisdom. The other is a test from your higher self. And learning to listen for which is which, that's the mark of someone who's not just chasing goals, but walking in alignment. Soul boredom is quiet, but persistent. It doesn't scream, it lingers. It shows up when you're living out of sync with your values, when something fundamental is missing, when your life is technically fine, but your spirit feels flat. Soul boredom says, this path is no longer yours. This job, this role, this version of you, it got you here, but it can't take you there. It's the subtle knowing that what once felt expansive now feels small, that you're ready for a deeper truth, a new layer of purpose, a more honest direction. Soul boredom is not about quitting, it's about releasing. It's not impulsive, it's aligned. But disciplined boredom, that's different. It's the restlessness that comes when things aren't exciting anymore. When the motivation wears off, when the shiny glow of starting fades, and you're left with the daily grind. Disciplined boredom whispers, this is hard, this is repetitive, this isn't thrilling anymore. And if you listen to that voice too quickly, you'll start a cycle, one that many people never break. You'll chase the next new thing, feel excited for a while, hit the dip, get bored, and walk away again. Over and over, never finishing, never mastering, never finding the richness that only reveals itself on the other side of repetition. So how do you tell the difference? You ask yourself harder questions. Not am I bored, but where is this boredom coming from? Is it coming from avoidance or alignment? Is this a feeling that's inviting me to pause and reflect? Or is it a feeling that's asking me to push through and mature? Am I wanting to leave because it's not mine, or because I don't want to face the uncomfortable parts of it? That's where your honesty matters. Because the truth is, growth is boring sometimes. Mastery is repetitive. Healing is exhausting. Starting something is exciting, but continuing it, that takes a different kind of courage. A kind that isn't flashy. A kind that doesn't get applause. a kind that requires you to keep going without constant proof that it's working. But here's the nuance. Not all change is quitting, and not all quitting is failure. Some boredom is a whisper. This isn't your path. Some boredom is a test. Stay on it. The key is in how you respond. If you feel soul boredom, pause, don't react. Reflect, journal, get quiet. Ask yourself, where am I betraying myself by staying? What truth am I avoiding because it will disrupt the comfort of my current life? What new version of me is calling to be born, and what do I have to release to meet her? When you answer these questions with honesty, the path becomes clear. Soul boredom usually asks for a bold, aligned shift, not just to something new, but to something truer. But if you feel disciplined boredom, stay. Stay and stretch. Stay and build your inner endurance. Stay and let the work shape you. This is where identity changes happen. Not when you start, but when you keep going. When you show up on the days you don't feel inspired. When you keep practicing even though no one's watching. When you hold your commitment, not because it feels good, but because it means something. And that kind of staying builds the foundation for everything meaningful. Your purpose, your power, your peace. So today, ask yourself, is this boredom trying to protect me from discomfort or guide me toward alignment? Am I seeking an escape or am I ready for expansion? Am I being called to deepen my discipline or change my direction? Sit with these questions. They won't always give you instant clarity, but they'll shift something in you. They'll wake up the part of you that knows the difference. That's the part to trust, the part that knows when to stay and when to let go. Because true alignment is not about staying comfortable. It's about staying connected to your values, to your calling, to your inner voice. And sometimes that means staying when it's hard. Sometimes that means walking away even when it looks right on the outside. The wisdom is in the discernment. The power is in the pause, and the freedom is in following the truth, even when it's inconvenient. Not all boredom means something is broken. Sometimes it just means you've stopped paying attention, and sometimes it means you've outgrown something. The key is learning to listen, not with your fears, not with your ego, but with your heart. That's where the real direction lives. And when you learn to tell the difference between soul boredom and discipline boredom, you stop living reactively and start walking in alignment with grace, with courage, with purpose. Number 7, transformation comes in silent moments. No one claps when you sit alone in your room staring at the wall instead of reaching for your phone. No one cheers when you breathe through a wave of discomfort instead of numbing it with scrolling, eating, or distractions. There's no applause when you choose silence over stimulation. But that is where the real transformation begins. Not in the noise, not in the highlight reels, but in the quiet, often overlooked moments when you choose presence over escape. These moments don't look impressive, but they're the foundation of everything powerful you'll ever become. You become powerful when you stop needing to be entertained, when you stop needing the world to keep you distracted, when you can sit with your thoughts and not flinch, when you can feel the full weight of boredom and not try to run from it. Most people spend their lives chasing stimulus, chasing noise, chasing the next fix. But those who grow, those who transform, they learn to stay. They learn to breathe into the stillness. They learn to trust that something sacred is happening in the silence. There's something holy about the quiet moments, the ones where nothing dramatic is happening. But inside, everything is shifting. You're learning to face yourself, to observe your emotions without becoming them, to feel the itch of distraction and let it pass. You're strengthening a part of you the world never taught you to use, the part that can hold space, the part that can wait, the part that doesn't need to react. That's not weakness, that's power, silent power. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that moves mountains from within. Stillness is not empty, it's full of answers. But you have to slow down enough to hear them. You have to stop long enough to notice them. And most of all, you have to trust that boredom isn't the enemy, it's the beginning of clarity, the beginning of emotional maturity, the beginning of inner peace. Mastering boredom isn't about discipline for the sake of discipline. It's about learning to be with yourself, to trust that your own presence is enough. So when the silence comes, don't fear it. Welcome it, sit with it, let it teach you. Because those small, quiet, unseen moments, that's where your future is being shaped. That's where the healing is happening. That's where the old you dies and the new you begins. Not with fireworks, but with stillness, with faith, and with the quiet courage to simply stay. Number 8, 7-day boredom challenge. How you handle boredom determines everything. Not just your productivity, not just your discipline, but the entire trajectory of who you're becoming. Because boredom isn't just a lack of stimulation. It's the moment your mind reveals its wiring. It's the mirror, the test, the battlefield. And if you want to reclaim your power, you have to learn how to stand in that silence without flinching. That's why this isn't just a motivational message. It's a call to action, a 7-day challenge to do the uncomfortable thing most people avoid. Face your boredom. Not numb it, not fix it. Just feel it and let it teach you something new. For the next 7 days, commit to 30 minutes each day with 0 distractions. No phone, no music, no scrolling. Just sit. Let your mind wander. Let the thoughts rise and pass without judgment. This is where you'll start to meet the real you, the one buried under the noise. Let yourself get uncomfortable. That's the point. Because the discomfort is the doorway. If you walk through it, you'll find a deeper kind of peace waiting on the other side. Every time you want to check out, sit deeper instead. Watch what happens. Each day, choose one task to do with full presence. No multitasking. Cook slowly. Walk without your phone. Fold clothes while you breathe. Pay attention to what your body feels. Notice how fast your mind wants to rush ahead. And instead of escaping, bring it back. Again and again. This is how you train your boredom muscle. This is how you build mental strength in a world that's forgotten what that looks like. Next, create something. Anything. Not for likes, not for validation, but from that still, quiet space within you. Draw, write, hum a melody. Build something with your hands. Let your creativity be born from boredom, not escape it. You'll be amazed what your mind is capable of when it isn't being constantly distracted. Finally, delay one impulse a day. Don't eat the sugar right away. Don't open the app. Don't speak that opinion the moment it hits your tongue. Pause. Create space between the urge and the action. That space, that's where your freedom lives. That's where your power begins to grow. Because every time you delay the impulse, you reclaim a little more control over your own mind. You're not just rewiring your habits, you're reclaiming your mind, reclaiming your attention, reclaiming your potential. This is your invitation to do something radical in a culture addicted to constant stimulation. Sit, be still, do it scared, do it bored, but do it, and watch who you become on the other side.